serta hadirin sekalian, alhamdulillah pada sore hari ini kita sampai pada sesi ketiga dengan judul The Importance of Equal Citizenship for an Inclusive and Collaborative Multifaith Society. Kita diharapkan kita ada 4 narasumber di sini, dan saya kira masing-masing narasumber dari kita oleh ANC. Bapak Ibu, fokus dari topik pada sesi ketiga ini adalah bagaimana pentingnya kesetaraan kewarganegaraan untuk menumbuhkan masyarakat multi agama yang damai, inklusif dan kolaboratif, terutama dari perspektif kesetaraan martabat setiap manusia. Dan betapa hal ini merupakan sesuatu yang mendasar dalam pemahaman dan pelaksanaan hak dan tanggung jawab setiap individu dalam masyarakat. Baiklah Bapak Ibu, untuk kesempatan pertama kami berikan kepada ibu kita, Prof. Tusscher, Special Info for Freedom and Religion and Belief Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Netherlands.
Terima kasih. Thank you so much. It felt very exciting. I felt a little bit like a lottery, but I came out first. And I'm also very happy to be on the first female majority panel today. So thank you for that, because I see so many women leaders in the hall, and I am looking forward very much to speaking to you more in depth about your experience with religious literacy, because that's something I'm trying to do in my own ministry. But I will not go into that. Let me start my speech, because I only have 6 minutes and 38 seconds left. Last year, at the International Virtual Conference, which I attended on religious freedom, the Minister of Law and Human Rights, which was this morning, Mr. Lowry, said very remarkable words about the urgent need to promote religious freedom, unity and stability, and how foresightful these words were. We celebrate this year the 75th anniversary of the fundamental freedoms and the fundamental human rights. What are these 4 fundamental freedoms, as I always call them, based on the 4 religions of the world? It's the freedom of thought, conscience, and religion in that order. The freedom of expression, to express your religion or your thoughts or conscience. The freedom from fear and the freedom from want. That's everything we need to promote human dignity, isn't it? We don't need more. And the major religions and thinkers of the world have already mentioned this many times. And we need also the rule of law for a peaceful and inclusive society, where citizens are equal and treated fairly. Now, how do we do that in the Netherlands? What do we do to promote this equal citizenship? We are working very actively to combat intolerance and discrimination, because every nation is suffering from that. We are group people, we are group animals, and we don't like each other intuitively when we look differently and sound differently, so we have to fight and work for that. We support multiple local, national and international initiatives to counter religious intolerance and hatred, and also to foster dialogue and respect and understanding. It's important to note that in my country, Muslims and other minorities generally do feel safe and happy, and they feel welcome. But discrimination, as I already said, exists everywhere. And despite the very unfortunate and despicable acts of religious intolerance committed by individuals in my country, we are tolerant when it comes to religion. And all minorities can live in peace, protected by law. Maybe it's interesting for you to note that in recent years more mosques have been inaugurated than churches. So this shows how tolerant we are. We work actively on combating racism and discrimination, also especially against Muslims, which we almost have 10% in our country, 1.3 million. We have appointed the National Coordinator Against Discrimination and Racism in October 21, and he has developed a national program driven by equality, together for inclusion. And these programs are very important. So what is he doing in his work? He is focusing on legislation that is still not promoting inclusion and that shuts out people from their freedoms. And they, for example, mosques, they are scrutinized very carefully when it comes to their money flows. Also, there's an official state commission on the investigation of discrimination and racism. There is a lot more attention in my country now for all these processes, because the people of color are emancipated very strongly. I am a product of emancipation of the labor movement, first in my family to study, and of the women's movement, one of the first women diplomats in my service. And I want others to benefit from these freedoms and opportunities as well. And that is why I'm totally in favor of emancipation and strengthening and empowering the position of people of color in my country. I do that from my heart and soul. What we do in the EU is also very interesting. There was recently appointed a special envoy to combat anti-Muslim hatred, and she doesn't always get all the support she needs. So it's very important we all keep an eye on supporting her. Because as I know, and you know, the structures are sometimes very resilient. Because we need to foster inclusive citizenship, religious tolerance, respect and understanding. We do take concrete action towards integration, inclusion, combating hate speech, very relevant. Finally, I want to mention a very important process in the UN internationally. It's called the Istanbul Process and Action Plan on promoting interreligious tolerance and combating discrimination. This was initiated by Resolution 1618 already in 2011. And the OIC Secretariat General called this a revolution, a triumph of multilateralism. And this process we have chaired in 2019, and that was very successful. Right now, Turkey is the chair, and I want to encourage your beautiful country, Indonesia, to take a leadership role here, because you have so much to share. Actually, today I've heard more wisdom and more wise words on the need for religious tolerance than I've heard in many, many conferences elsewhere, especially also in my own country. So I do encourage Indonesia to share your good practices with us. There's a lot to learn from each other. And with these words, 4 seconds left, I want to pass the microphone back to the chair. Thank you.
Saya kira apa yang disampaikan oleh khusus ini luar biasa, pengalaman di Uganda, dan pembicara selanjutnya kami persilakan Profesor Dr. Ibu Siti Ruhaini Dzuhayatin. Ini Senior Advisor of the Executive Office of President of the Republic of Indonesia.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to begin this discussion on equal citizenship and recalling the process that I've been involving so far. That is in the Indonesia Solidarity Network, led by our Minister of Foreign Affairs, again in their efforts of working together with our sisters and brothers in Afghanistan to to establish what is called equal citizenship. And the things that I recall from the process is very much relevant to our discussion this afternoon. That is the process that every nation is going through. Afghanistan is relatively few ethnic groups. If compared to Indonesia, for example, we have 730 ethnic groups with many religions. In this process, it is very important to convince each other, each parties, to come together to build what is called a nation. And from this process, I reflect what we have been through in Indonesia when the nation state was formulated and declared. So I would say that in Indonesia we are blessed to have the process that allowed Indonesians to build and to formulate a citizenship where everybody is involved there and in the voluntary manner. So in 1928, Indonesia, it's not Indonesia because at that time Indonesia didn't exist yet, but young people come together, they declare about the birth of a new nation called Indonesia, because before we have so many ethno-religious power and this is here. Okay, if the committee can open the third PowerPoint, so it will be helpful. Okay, in this particular time was very important for Indonesia in terms of how equal citizenship is established, because often in many countries, nations came after the state. So when it happened, so the political interest of the majority is prevalent. It's prevalent in order to create what is called national identity. But Indonesia has a different path for that. So nation is was coming first before the state. So that in 1928, a nation called Indonesia was giving an existence here in this country. And it was initiated by so many, all of their large ethnic group here in Indonesia. So, because this is a voluntary process, so the issue is how everybody is contributing, how every ethnicity is contributing to the new existence of this nation. So that is actually the blessing that we have when the nation is established, that these nations was trying to have political independence. So my reflection to my previous story is that when we're talking about equal citizenship, it's something to do with the way that citizenship is established. The things that we can learn from Indonesia is that because the process of citizenship is voluntary, less political, so that everybody, the majority, the minority, the small groups of ethnic groups here in Indonesia, they're contributing the value and contributing this nation beyond what the so-called ethno-religious commonality or ethno-religious nationalism. So it's beyond that. So this is actually the modality for Indonesia to shift from the traditional commonality into modern society, from mono-existent, which consists of the homogeneous collectivity, and there's also charismatic leadership, and so forth. This is related to the traditional commonality into the modern society. It shift to mono-existent, that everybody in the new country, in the new nations, they are equal. They have equal access, participation, decision-making process, and the benefits of this nation. After that, to it. And based on that, we realized that coexistence is not enough. Because the complexity, the issues that we face as a nation has become more and more complex and multifaceted. It is why then we then all together after the independence, we are promoting what is called pro-existence, from mono-existent, co-existent, and pro-existent, where moderation has to be there, and moderation of the faith, moderation of culture, and all the social aspect has to be revisited. And again, Indonesia, of course, we face challenges that we are trying so hard to put all the pieces that we have to become a solid, equal citizenship. And as I mentioned earlier, that religious and cultural moderation is nurtured by the government and also by civil society. And one of the mechanism and one of the methodology that used by Leimena, because I'm also associated with Leimena, is cross-cultural religious literacy in order to uphold, in order to sustain the moderations, religious and cultural moderation, which is really the basis for our existence as multi-faith and multi-cultural society. So thank you very much.
Kita beralih ke pembicara berikutnya, pada Ibu Mufford, Advisor, Peace and Asia Pacific and South Asia Office of International Peace Freedom, dengan Pak. Silakan.
Thank you so much. First, I'd like to extend my gratitude to Mr. Human Rights and the Institute for hosting this great It's time to go through today. Discussions about peace, inclusion, and human rights are always timely and relevant, but more so now than ever. As we heard throughout the day, and as we know from turning on the news, the world is a really complicated place right now. Misinformation, hateful rhetoric, both online and offline, and violence dominate every news cycle. Across the globe, hate-filled rhetoric and incidents have surged, including violent attacks. People seem more divided than ever, and the stakes have never been higher. So this invites the question, what brings us together in inclusion and collaboration during dark times? So it's fitting for this panel to confront these divisions by addressing the common threads of humanity that bind us all together. At the advent of the 75th anniversary of the First Declaration of Human Rights, it is an auspicious time to discuss inclusivity and equity. First, I'll speak about the striking examples from the Declaration itself that underpin the inclusivity and equity that we see here. Next, I'll discuss the U.S. perspective about the interconnectedness of the rule of law, pluralism, diversity, and inclusion. And
And finally, I'll close out with a few comments about how freedom of religion or belief and the related human rights of freedom of expression, association, and peaceful assembly is essential to human experience. So, as has been mentioned throughout the day today, Article 1 of UDHR sets the foundation for everything that follows. Quote, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in the spirit of brotherhood. All human beings, born free and equal in dignity and rights. Article 2 continues, quote, everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration, without distinction of any kind. That's the key part, right? Without distinction of any kind. That means without discrimination. Simply put, human rights, including freedom of religion or belief, are for everyone. As a 2006 UN report said, all persons should, by virtue of their essential humanity, enjoy all human rights. So that means we cannot have a conversation about equity and inclusion if that conversation does not support the rights of both citizens and non-citizens. It is the responsibility of governments to protect the rights of every person within their borders, including by promoting equity and inclusion for all, citizens and non-citizens alike. Now, no country is perfect in this endeavor. We all have ways in which we can work to expand inclusion and bolster equity for all. In the U.S. government, equity and inclusion come from the inside out. This is something that we share in common with Indonesia. We are both strengthened by our diversity, starting with our core mottos of Bineka Tunggal Ika and E Pluribus Unum, from the many, one, unity in diversity. To realize these core values in the U.S. Department of State, Secretary Blinken created an Office of Diversity and Inclusion premised on the understanding that a more diverse, equitable, inclusive, and accessible workforce at the department strengthens U.S. foreign policy. The office is structured around 3 pillars: intentionality, transparency, and accountability. In short, this means recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce, dismantling systemic inequities where they exist, and incentivizing model behavior that exemplifies the core values set forth in the principles of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Beyond how we organize ourselves internally in the State Department, these principles are central to the work we do around the world. And one of the strongest examples of this that I can give is the United States' proud promotion of the values established in UN Human Rights Council Resolution 1618, mentioned moments ago by Your Excellency. Enshrining a shared commitment to tolerance and inclusivity, Resolution 1618 embraces the role that free expression plays in bolstering religious tolerance and inclusion. The United States supports freedom of expression, freedom of religion or belief, freedom of association, and the right of peaceful assembly as essential elements of any democracy. Thus, while we abhor and condemn sentiments expressed by acts of religious hatred, such as desecrating holy texts, we do not believe freedom of expression should be abridged to outlaw them. We strongly believe that hatred withers in the face of public scrutiny, and that limiting freedom of expression will only encourage hateful ideas to find new venues in which to manifest. Instead of placing limitations on freedom of expression, we instead advocate for other measures, such as education, interfaith and intercultural dialogue, and other mechanisms, such as the implementation of the values expressed in Resolution 1618, to prevent and respond to manifestations of intolerance, discrimination, hatred, and violence based on religion. Further, in December last year, President Biden announced the formation of the Interagency Policy Committee to combat anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and related forms of bias and discrimination. Since its founding, the President has directed this group to develop national strategies to counter anti-Semitism and to counter Islamophobia. We look forward to continuing our work with community leaders, advocates, members of Congress, and more to develop these strategies and counter hate in all its forms. President Biden has been unequivocal. There is no place in America for hatred against anyone, period. Effective implementation of these strategies in the United States requires a whole of government effort, and it will be essential for government and civil society to work together and forge cross-community coalitions against hatred in all its forms. As we foster more avenues to combat hatred, we often hear the term tolerance, particularly in interfaith settings. Yet the behavior we truly seek is not that individuals merely tolerate one another. Our objective is respect, ideally mutual respect. Through the lens of freedom of religion or belief, this means that while we may never fully understand someone else's beliefs or accept those beliefs as our own, we can learn to respect that person's right to live their lives according to those beliefs. This is a core pillar of democratic societies, and is a responsibility we share to uphold these values at home and internationally. Hatred and intolerance are learned behaviors. This means they can be unlearned. This is a form of education at any age, inside the classroom and outside the real world. And advancing freedom of religion or belief is a powerful tool in this effort. After all, freedom of religion or belief is not about protecting one faith over others, or about protecting one ideology over others. It's about protecting people and empowering them to live a purposeful life guided by their beliefs, whatever those beliefs may be. In closing, I cannot stress enough how much impediment hatred is to inclusion and equity for all. Espousing hatred or committing acts of violence based on hate do nothing to promote peace or the rights of any person or group. Our task is difficult. We have a responsibility to combat hatred in all its forms. We must promote equity and inclusion for all, citizens and non-citizens without distinction, just as the UDHR says. And we must advance freedom of religion or belief and related human rights for all. These objectives are mutually beneficial and mutually reinforcing, and they are integral to our nation's futures as democratic societies and to honor the dignity of every individual. Thank
Dan yang pembicara terakhir kami persilakan Mr. Brigham, founder and chairperson of the International Religious Freedom Secretariat.
Thank you very much. Last speaker of the day, that distinction. So happy to be here. But I want to start by thanking again His Excellency Osama Gawli, Minister of Law and Human Rights at his ministry. Thanks to the Leimena Institute. Thanks to our partners, the International Center at BYU Law School and Templeton Religion Trust, who made it possible for our Secretariat to be here today. So thank you. I'm honored to be part of this distinguished panel with all women, with a fellow male moderator, the first female majority panel of the day. Glad to be on. Thank you. I'm here to tell you about a practical model, the International Religious Freedom Roundtable in Washington, D.C. Next slide. The International Religious Freedom Roundtable, we call it the IRF Roundtable. Go to the next slide. But this is a multi-faith, inclusive, equal citizenship model. It's been going for 13 years now in Washington, D.C. Next slide. I'm just going to show you some pictures to show you what it looks like. Because again, for 13 years, people of all faiths and beliefs have been gathering on a regular basis. A lot of people, when I was looking for a vehicle like this, I was told by more than a few people that it was not possible that the faith communities would not come together and work together on a regular basis. We've proven them wrong, and like I said, we're just at the 13-year mark now. But we gathered, back then in 2017, we were gathering every 3 months. For the last 5 years, we've been gathering every week, every Tuesday. And it's grown since then. I'm just going to tell you what we do. Each time we gather, we share stories. We share stories of challenges each faith community is facing. So those are stories of discrimination, persecution, and even genocide, unfortunately. And the purpose of sharing those stories is to then catalyze multi-faith actions. This is an action-oriented platform. Once we learn about these problems that are going on somewhere in the world, everywhere in the world, the whole purpose is to try to pull together and take actions in multi-faith fashion as equal citizens. So this is multi-faith actions. And the more actions that we took, the more this roundtable grew. The next couple slides. Yeah, this is a cooperative engagement approach. We engage people of all faiths and beliefs. Going back to the topic of this conference, we respect the human dignity of every individual, and we protect each individual's liberty of conscience. That's the purpose. That's what we do. That's what we do. We facilitate people of all faiths and beliefs standing up for each other. Next slide. And the more actions we took in multi-faith equal citizenship fashion, like I said, the more the roundtable grew. This is what every week, this is what the meeting looked like just in Washington, D.C. This is before COVID forced us to go online. Next slide. Yeah, so this is a proven model. Week in, week out. And what we witnessed, what we saw happen before our very eyes is the more we share stories. Well, everybody's sitting at that same table and listening to each other's stories of the discrimination and persecution that their community was facing. The more the people of all faiths did that, the more the mutual understanding and respect rose. And the more actions we took, standing up for each other, it actually rose even stronger mutual trust and reliance. And I've seen it with my own eyes, even love across our deepest differences, deepest irreconcilable differences, but loving each other and standing up for each other and developing lasting friendships at this roundtable. Next slide. Obviously, we've been engaging governments together in multi-faith fashion. So it's cooperative engagement across the faith communities and cooperative engagement of governments together. Cooperatively and constructively. It is multi-faith advocacy, but we also come alongside governments and offer work with governments to improve public policy and solve social problems. Next slide. Next. Yeah, so what you see here is partnership. In Washington, top-down, bottom-up partnership between, in this case, the U.S. government, obviously all the different faith and belief communities and civil society organizations that get involved in the National Religious Freedom in Washington. Next slide. Consultative relationships. We get called in to consult with U.S. government leadership, ask the opinion of the different faith and belief communities on issues. In this case, it was informing trade talks. We're trying to include religious freedom as a condition of trade talks. Next. This was a meeting in the National Security Council of the White House, informing the drafting of the national security strategy of the United States. And you see, this is a multi-faith meeting. This is what we do. We pull together and work together, and we do multi-faith meetings. David Saperstein was ambassador at large. We did several meetings with him at the State Department where we had 15 or 20 representatives of all faiths and beliefs in the room. He was very engaged. We would meet with our communities overseas when we traveled. And then what happened was, too, in late 2018 or 2019, Ambassador Sam Brownback was promoting this model around the world, so I started getting invited to travel around the world. And faith and community leaders around the world would invite me to come to their country. They'd pay for me to go to their country and help them set up a multi-faith roundtable of their own. And they would customize it, by the way, they customize it for the local context. So you see the different countries I've been to set up. The next one. We can just cycle through the next couple. That's Nigeria, South Korea. Next. Brussels, the EU, Colombia. That Colombia was supposed to about the government of Taiwan. Next. We can go to the next one. United Kingdom, Romania, Uzbekistan, next. Good. Hungary, Bahrain, keep going. These are roundtables in the public square. Guatemala, next. Costa Rica, next. We did a roundtable that was hosted by the President of Guatemala in the National Palace, next. Like I say right there, so I just want to finish the cycle here. We're building a global network now. We're not building it, but we're facilitating the growth of a global network of these multi-faith equal citizenship roundtables. Local faith leaders in each of these countries are the ones that are building them. These are locally owned, locally run roundtables. We just provide guidance. We share information about what has worked in Washington, just as a guide. Then we get to customize each roundtable the way it will work best in their country and focus on the issues that the faith communities want to work on in each of these countries. I come here to Kazakhstan just because we started engaging directly with Kazakhstan back in 2013. And it took us 7 years to get to this point where we held, this was in the same week or two, in Kazakhstan, 3 different roundtables in 3 different cities. The government's agreed to support 8 or 9 roundtables in 8 or 9 cities in Kazakhstan. So we're seeing a national network of these equal citizenship roundtables growing in Kazakhstan. I finished with this story just because at the end of that, let's go through this, a couple more slides on end with the multi-faith family photo at the end as well, end with yeah, these are just a memorandum of understanding, signed public-private partnership. That's one of our partners, other neighbor community signing with the government of Kazakhstan. Again, part of which includes these roundtables. We just signed a further MOU in Georgia a few months ago to expand the collaboration next. Again, just going back to what this is building is much stronger than tolerance next. So these are just some of the pictures, multi-faith friendships that we're forging around the world. Next. That's in Doha. So we believe that this has the potential, that if we keep building this, to build more than just religious freedom, but it builds social cohesion. This builds civil society in places where there isn't a civil society. It's a good citizenship and governance model because you're bringing previously marginalized people back into the public square through these roundtables, where they're actually sitting down and cooperating and working with their majority faith and their governments for the first time ever. That Kazakhstan picture, first time ever, that very small and very new religious minorities were invited to sit at the table with the majority faith and their government. Next. And this is the last picture, so I'll finish with. At the end of this meeting here, a few people who were from these new minority faiths came up to me and tears were coming down their cheek. These are separate people, 2 separate people coming up to me at 2 separate times after this meeting. They were crying because they were invited to sit there for the first time ever. They were equal citizens on that day. For the first time ever, they were treated as equal citizens. And they want to be equal citizens. They want to be good citizens. They want to sit with their majority faith, work with their majority and their government, and work together to solve problems and improve public policy. That's why this has the potential to improve citizenship and governance for the better of all society. So I'm here, partners with Leimena Institute. Would love to have 2 breakout sessions tomorrow to go deeper into could Indonesia set up an ongoing roundtable as like the next step to build on the cross-cultural religious literacy program that's been so successful. So thank you.
Jika berbicara semangat sekali sampai lewat waktunya, saya tidak ada menghentikan karena sepertinya semangat sekali bercerita tentang bagaimana pengalaman Rodney bagi beberapa negara dan sangat menarik dari pengalaman bagaimana pengalaman Anda, pengalaman Indonesia, pengalaman Amerika dan kepada Bapak Ibu saya kira kami beri kesempatan seperti pada sesi-sesi sebelumnya, 3 orang penanya, dan ini para pembicara mayoritas perempuan. Mungkin yang sebelumnya susah sekali mencari penanya dari perempuan. Itu ada satu perempuan, yang kakak juga perempuan, dan satu laki-laki. Ini juga perempuan lebih banyak, ini dua perempuan dan satu laki-laki. Kami persilakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Dzuhayatin, saya guru kimia dari MAN 1 Kota Malang. Kita semua mengetahui bahwa perempuan, terutama guru perempuan, itu menempati satu titik strategis sebagai agent of change untuk selalu menyuarakan dan mewujudkan kehidupan yang harmonis yang ramah terhadap perbedaan. Saya bertanya, adakah agenda untuk upgrading kompetensi atau pengetahuan perempuan seperti roundtable yang diselenggarakan Leimena Indonesia dan Amerika? Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ya, saya Prof dari UIN Surabaya dan juga sebagai salah satu narasumber di pelatihan guru untuk LKNB, khususnya materi kompetensi kolaborasi. Yang ingin saya sampaikan saat ini, yang pertama, saya mendengarkan tadi betapa indahnya yang dirumuskan di United States of America, di mana bagaimana supaya kebencian itu betul-betul tidak ada, dan terutama antara agama. Nah, mungkin pertanyaan saya yang bagian ini, karena nilai-nilai yang tadi disampaikan itu sangat bagus, namun kemudian pada saat yang sama ini memang keprihatinan, namun lagi-lagi selalu dipertanyakan. Nah, mungkin saya ingin mendengar dari narasumber dari Minister of Amerika di saat, mohon maaf, yang terakhir itu di saat Israel membuat Palestina sampai jumlah korbannya sangat tinggi. Kenapa kemudian tidak terdengar bagaimana suara United States of America dalam membela Palestina dalam hal kemanusiaan? Kemudian yang kedua tentang kesetaraan di Indonesia. Nah, terutama pada posisi ini kesetaraan dalam beragama. Sesungguhnya kami sudah merasakan ya, perkembangan di Indonesia itu sudah sangat bagus, terutama begitu muncul kehidupan perumahan, maka kemudian hubungan antar tenaga, antar individu di perumahan itu antar agama sudah menjadi sangat bagus, dan toleransi juga sangat tinggi tanpa mengganggu, tanpa melarang melaksanakan ibadah sesuai dengan agama masing-masing. Namun kami melihat misalnya dalam moderasi beragama yang belakangan itu muncul fenomena di mana pada saat Natal misalnya, terutama pada saat ritual itu ada mahasiswa Islam, mahasiswa dari perguruan tinggi Islam yang kemudian dihadirkan untuk ikut dalam acara tersebut. Saya pernah, karena saya juga punya komunitas dengan kawan-kawan Kristen maupun Katolik, saya pernah ditegur begini, Ibu, kenapa tuh mahasiswa-mahasiswa pada gereja kami pada saat kami acara resmi untuk ritual Natal, sementara kami kalau ada agenda Idul Fitri kita tidak ikut sholat, tidak ikut ini, tapi ikut merayakan. Nah, mungkin hal seperti ini ternyata menimbulkan beberapa keresahan. Tidak hanya kemudian keresahannya itu dari orang-orang Islam, tapi juga dari agama lain yang merasa kenapa sampai ikut terlibat di situ. Nah, yang terakhir tentang LGBT. Kira-kira apakah kemudian untuk LGBT terutama di Indonesia, di mana memang seluruh agama itu ternyata memang ajarannya tidak membenarkan, namun memang LGBT harus berada manusia, jadi unsur kemanusiaan memang harus dihargai. Namun bagaimana kalau kemudian hak-hak itu diberikan seluas-luasnya? Kita dihadapkan pada penanganannya begitu. Apakah nanti tidak akan menimbulkan muncul lagi yang baru, sehingga menjadi masyarakat LGBT yang sangat luas. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu yang luar biasa. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Baik, Arif Yudhistira dari Jakarta. Pertanyaan saya yang pertama berkaitan dengan saya ingin melihat cerita dari Belanda Amerika tentang bagaimana anak-anak muda mentransformasikan isu-isu kemanusiaan, isu-isu kesetaraan supaya tetap berlangsung dan berjalan lancar begitu dari generasi ke generasi. Sampai menggunakan cerita itu karena ini menjadi inspirasi penting bagi kami terutama di Indonesia, karena membangun transformasi itu terasa begitu sulit dan banyak tantangan begitu. Ini yang pertama. Kemudian yang kedua, bagaimana tadi kesetaraan kemanusiaan, isu-isu martabat manusia dihubungkan dengan proses demokrasi. Nah, di Indonesia sendiri ada satu yang unik tapi agak janggal adalah proses-proses demokrasi selama ini itu lebih dekat dengan satu suku Jawa begitu. Jadi ini isu yang masih rentan sampai sekarang. Bagaimana menyetarakan satu kesempatan bersama gitu supaya demokrasi itu memang tidak hanya Jawa sentris tapi juga ke yang lain seperti itu. Itu yang di Indonesia. Kemudian yang kedua berkaitan dengan demokrasi. Bagaimana proses demokrasi yang berjalan di Amerika maupun Belanda ataupun di negara lain berkaitan dengan anak muda gitu. Rasa-rasanya persoalan di Indonesia itu adalah persoalan akses dengan persoalan kedekatan gitu. Ketika anak muda punya satu akses politik yang cukup dekat dengan kekuasaan, maka dia akan sangat mudah jalurnya untuk menempuh jalur kepemimpinan seperti itu. Sementara bagi rakyat yang dia tidak punya jaringan kekuasaan, apalagi jaringan intelektual, maka mampuslah dia. Dia tidak bisa meneruskan satu kepemimpinan ke depan ya, yang diharapkan oleh kita semuanya memegang prinsip-prinsip tadi, hak asasi manusia, kesetaraan, prinsip-prinsip demokrasi dan lain sebagainya. Saya kira itu yang saya. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih kepada semua penanya. Selanjutnya kami berikan kembali kepada para pembicara untuk menjawab masing-masing punya waktu 5 menit. Kami mulai dari yang mulia.
Terima kasih. Yes, very good questions, and thank you, Leimena Ibu and Alif, for challenging me. Actually, when I come to think of it, these questions I always ask to the countries where I was ambassador, and I never ask myself, what do we do to empower female leadership, especially of minority groups in the Netherlands? I'm sure there are many answers, but as an ambassador, I wasn't trained to look at that. That is what I find in the international human rights discussion now, with the strengthening of the position of the Global South, which is really changing the panels in the international politics and geopolitics. We see now that there is much more of a level playing field. I get questions from the Global South when it comes to our human rights and our rule of law in the Netherlands, and I encourage that, because that is how we should talk. As equal partners, we need to learn from each other. To answer your question, Arif, it was really on the agenda to build competence of female leaders and educators. We are now setting up a training for Dutch imams this has been a long process, but it's now coming to an end. And I really hope that many young people and young female leaders will apply for this early training program, which is a post-master's training program, so high level. And you remind me now that I should ask for the position of female imams and muftis there. Thank you for that suggestion. When it comes to young people, it's a good question, Arif. We have youth ambassadors going out to the UN and to international organizations to represent the position of Dutch young people. And they're really diverse. I just met a new group, they're anywhere between 18 and 20, and they're very ambitious, and they're of all colors and all religions, and they're all very interested in talking about religion and belief, also with me. So I'm really enchanted to see that youngsters are much more open to an open discussion and respectful discussion, also about the position of LGBTIQ, gender, and all the sensitive issues that very much have to do with culture and religion. And we should be open to a respectful and equal level discussion there. On democracy, it was, can I just continue one more? Before. On democracy, I think the position of minorities in a democracy is a litmus test for the value and the quality of democracy in any country. And when you look at regional empowerment, you were speaking about Java centrism. I cannot judge that. I'm not opposed, unfortunately, to your country. But in my country, we see the emancipation of people from the region coming also. I myself come from a very peripheral part of our small, tiny country, from the east. And we always felt a little bit neglected, ignored. And you see that even in the Netherlands, voices of people who are a bit further away, they are stronger now. So I just encourage you to continue that voice and to empower yourself. That's what we are trying also after many years of not even being listened to. So thank you for that question.
Jawaban yang luar biasa dari Yang Mulia Ibu Tusscher. Selanjutnya Bu Ruhaini, silakan.
Saya menggunakan bahasa Indonesia, saya kira tidak ada yang sangat spesifik yang terlalu bermasalah ya. Kalau Mas Hendrik bisa membantu saya untuk membuka slides nomor 7. Sebetulnya jawaban itu ada di situ ya, bahwa Indonesia sebetulnya terus berupaya untuk menjadikan kewarganegaraan ini menjadi satu entitas yang setara. Itu secara ideal kita terus mencapai itu, meskipun memang dalam beberapa hal kita masih harus terus berupaya. Misalnya tadi terkait dengan persoalan mayoritas dan minoritas. Tetapi yang perlu digarisbawahi adalah bahwa karena proses membangun bangsa kita ini dulunya adalah bersifat sipil, ya, bukan sebuah political project, gitu, sehingga sejak awal sebetulnya kebangsaan kita telah memberikan wadah terhadap praktek berkewarganegaraan secara egaliter atau secara sama ya. Nah, tadi ada 4 hal yang tadi belum sempat saya bicarakan sangat rinci, meskipun dalam jawaban ini juga tidak terlalu rinci. Tapi yang terpenting Mas Arif, bahwa persoalan yang sangat mendasar itu adalah persoalan antar ini yang pertama dengan yang bisa tidak tersendiri. Banyaknya satu entitas sebetulnya tidak benar bahwa di Indonesia itu menjadi menjadi mereka yang berhak untuk mewarnai bangsa Indonesia. Jadi kita dengan cara yang spaces yang pada saat memberikan atau menyediakan akses partisipasi dan pengambilan keputusan dan penerimaan manfaat yang sama. Nah, ini satu hal yang melandasi proses bagaimana kita mampu untuk menjaga equal citizenship, termasuk di dalamnya adalah ekspresi atau juga ekspresi keagamaan dan ekspresi kebudayaannya. Nah, mungkin saya tidak secara spesifik akan menjawab tentang masalah LGBT, tetapi kita harus melihatnya di dalam arah yang mungkin berbeda. Jadi secara individu sebetulnya itu adalah individu, hanya saja memang di Indonesia atau di negara-negara yang lain pada saat itu memasuki ranah publik, maka sebetulnya disitulah kontestasi dan juga disitulah sebetulnya negosiasi dilakukan. Karena bagaimanapun hal yang sifatnya adalah sebuah pengakuan terhadap sebuah identitas ini memerlukan waktu yang lama. Jadi persoalan yang akan melibatkan atau tidak itu bukan isu yang harus kita bicarakan, tetapi yang harus kita bicarakan adalah sejauh mana sebetulnya entitas-entitas baru yang kemudian muncul di dalam masyarakat kita ini bisa kita negosiasikan pada ranah mana itu harus diekspresikan dan pada ranah mana kemudian itu memerlukan satu negosiasi dengan masyarakat yang lainnya. Kemudian untuk untuk pertanyaan apakah akan ada kelanjutannya, ini nanti Pak Adis bisa menjawab ya. Tapi tentu ini responnya sangat bagus Pak, bahwa ini Pak alumni ini mempunyai eagerness yang cukup bagus sebetulnya untuk terus menerus memperkaya literasi beragama lintas budaya. Dan yang terakhir, meskipun tidak langsung disampaikan kepada saya bahwa masalah pemuda dan pemudi itu ini memang mau tidak mau pada akhirnya akan mengambil leadership itu, dan itulah sebabnya Leimena misalnya dan juga pemerintah Indonesia, kalau itu kaitannya dengan Indonesia, sangat memberikan kesempatan kepada pada kaum muda sebetulnya untuk mengambil dan mengambil leadership itu. Dan apa yang tadi saya sampaikan bahwa perkembangan ranah-ranah publik ini sebetulnya memberikan modalitas yang sangat besar bagi anak muda untuk bersama-sama atau setidaknya secara kolektif ataupun secara individual untuk mengambil peran yang lebih besar, apakah itu di tingkat lokal, di tingkat nasional ataupun juga internasional. Dan di Indonesia misalnya semua hal yang terkait dengan isu-isu strategis itu pasti melibatkan kelompok muda, karena kelompok muda ini sebetulnya yang akan mewarisi bangsa, negara, dan juga tentu saja budaya yang kita miliki. Kita pada tahun 1923 dan 1945 sudah memproklamasikan bahwa Indonesia adalah sebuah negara yang demokratis, dan oleh sebab itu nilai-nilai yang perlu terus-menerus kita pertahankan. Hal inilah yang sebetulnya menjadi kunci kita semuanya untuk bersama-sama menjaga agar Indonesia terbuka untuk siapa saja, agar Indonesia nyaman dan aman untuk semuanya. Dan yang terpenting adalah bahwa modalitas yang kita miliki di Indonesia ini akan memberikan kontribusi terhadap development of humanity in the world. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Selanjutnya Mbak Dina, silakan.
Thank you. I don't know that I'll have to respond to each aspect of the question, but I'll do my very best. To the first question, I have a very strong soft spot for teachers. Both of my parents were educators, and teachers, that is the most important job in the world. So while I don't have any grand strategies of how we can support teachers, and I do repeat, female teachers in particular play a very strategic and important role as agents of change. Couldn't agree with you more. And so I don't have any big ideas on that front, but I support you and everything that you're doing. So thank you for the important work you do. On the second question, thank you so much for those thoughtful comments. You mentioned in regards to addressing nature, you mentioned beautiful ideas or my remarks. And you're right. It's one thing for beautiful ideas to exist; it's another to implement them. Right? And that of course is the hard part. The strategies that I mentioned, these are U.S. national strategies to combat anti-Semitism, national strategies to combat Islamophobia. These were already in the works dating back to December of last year. So these processes were already happening. And it's because the administration in the United States recognized that there was a true domestic need to focus, to think intentionally and deliberately about these issues that are real challenges in the United States. And how can we possibly help confront them around the world if we aren't also taking a hard look at ourselves? So this is what these strategies are all about, and they are ongoing. It's an iterative process. So we definitely look forward to see where those lead. And to the rest of how the U.S. government is responding, I would like to associate myself with the comments from this morning. Very well. I think the way he's framed how we look at identity it's just beautiful. So I don't have anything more specific to say other than what Brad had to say this morning really spoke to me, particularly in regards to your question. And so I respond to that. On the third question, particularly about engaging youth. I'll give you a very, very specific example, and that is sports diplomacy. This is something that my office, I work in the Office of International Religious Freedom and State Department, so this is something that we've been tackling quite a lot lately, and I'll give you a very specific example. Our office is led by an ambassador at large, recently he went to London and he met with the Chelsea Football Club. And this was, you may know, the Chelsea Football Club has its own anti-hate campaign. And so he went there to learn from them. And, you know, these sports figures, they're so popular around the globe. It's not like U.S. sports figures where they're popular domestically. You know, these footballers, they're popular around the world. And they have huge followings, they're very influential, but they're also huge targets. And so they formed this anti-hate campaign to address these issues within, to address them without, to become better role models. And so that's partly why my boss, the ambassador, was there to engage, to learn. It's something that we're carrying forward. We want to do more sports diplomacy efforts ourselves. It's about meeting youth on their level, speaking their language, finding ways to interact with them in ways that they understand and can relate to further in their own lives. So that's just one very specific example about how we can use the work that we do that sometimes seems esoteric and not legal, but frame it in a way that youth can grasp it and can help share it for both their generations and future generations.
Thank you, Nina. Next, us.
Pretty quick. Just on the women question, we have at our roundtable we have working groups. We have women's working groups. Everything. One thing I forgot to mention is everything at the roundtable is participant-led, participant-driven. So some of the women participants form a working group, just specifically focused on women issues related to religious freedom. And then they design and launch multi-faith initiatives designed to advance women's rights alongside the freedom of religion. LGBTQ, for us, we do have participants of our roundtable, again, who are LGBTQ people of faith, and they actually, instead of setting up a working group, they set up a new roundtable, so there's an LGBTQ roundtable that's just launched, and so we'll be working separate but alongside the roundtable I just told you. Youth, we do not have a youth working group, we don't have much youth participation on our roundtable meetings. But the events that we help co-sponsor and help do, usually now you're starting to see youth tracks of a lot of these events. There was just participants of our roundtable helped lead a youth summit. It was an online summit that just occurred in October, which was very successful. I think a few hundred youth participated in that. There's a ministerial on freedom of religious belief in Prague, Czech Republic in 2 weeks. There's a whole youth track about sports diplomacy. The State Department's involved in that. Also, there's a youth exhibition soccer, which is involved in that. It's part of the ministerial. So there's going to be a few hundred youth, I think, participating in the ministerial too. So you're seeing a lot more youth tracks to bring more youth into all these religious freedom events and other events. The last two questions. Human dignity and democratic process. Thank you for all these good questions, by the way. Our roundtables are designed to help, bring human dignity and freedom of religion or belief bring religious minorities more into the democratic process. So through our roundtables in the public square, that's our solution, to that issue. And then lastly, we are going to be launching a meeting, as she spoke earlier. She's going to be helping us develop training programs next year. We'll be launching training programs that we should build in training for youth, include youth, women, and everything else. So we look forward to that. Again, we invite people here in Indonesia to set up a roundtable and become part of this growing global network that they need and that's going to be managed. So again, thank you for allowing me to spend some time with you. Look forward to breakout sessions tomorrow.
Terima kasih kepada semua pembicara yang luar biasa, dan saya kira apa yang disampaikan oleh pembicara baik pengalaman di Belanda, di Amerika, dan juga di Indonesia ini akan menjadi inspirasi bagi guru-guru, terutama alumni RKRB, untuk bercerita kepada gurunya masing-masing nanti. Sekali lagi terima kasih, dan kita berikan tepuk tangan yang meriah kepada semua pembicara. Demikian akhir sesi ini, semoga bermanfaat. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.